Hello everyone, welcome to week number 7 in Science 200. We've got just this week and next week to go, and then you will be finished and moving on to other topics in your degree program. So let's see what we've got going on. Last week, week 6, you finished up your paper and you finished doing your research on your topic, which ranged from ocean acidification to electric vehicles to commercial nuclear energy to genetically modified organisms to genetic engineering. There's so many different topics that you covered, which is wonderful. And I hope that you learned a lot about your topic through this particular type of examination. So you finished up your paper. This week you're going to also work in your Sumo web text in chapter 7, of course, and you're going to evaluate the different types of communication there are for expressing scientific ideas and some science to the general public and to other people, even your peers. So they're all different ways to communicate, and you have to understand that and understand your audience. Remember, we've been talking about that most of the term, in order to effectively share information. So that's really important. You're going to take a look at a report that was published on the Deepwater Horizon oil spill in 2010, and you will evaluate it through your web text. This week you're going to examine the importance of peer review of scientific work. This is so important. It's the way that everyone stays honest in the world of science. You publish your work, and then it is out there for everybody to look at. Now, it's pretty easy to understand these days with so many different avenues of social media that are out there, because you know if you post something, you're going to be critiqued on whatever it is you put out there, right? The good, the bad, and the ugly. Well, that's the way that it works in science too, and it always has worked that way. You get your work peer reviewed, and that means people who are in your field doing the same type of work as you take a look at your work when you submit it to a journal, and they review it and they say, yes, this is ready to be published, or no, it isn't. And it usually is, no, it's not ready to be published. What usually happens is you will get back a letter. Of course, now it's electronic, but you get back a letter that says, this is not ready to be published, but if you make these changes and they're listed, then it will be ready to be published. And that's usually what happens. It's usually not a definite yes or a definite no. It's usually in between. That's the peer review process. I remember the first time that I published something science now, not education related, but science. And my name was the first author because it was my dissertation research. And so I've been doing it for years, and I was getting ready to publish it. And I sent it off to a journal, and I wrote a note. I had a handwritten note on my paper that said, please be gentle with me. This is my first submission of a journal article. I got a note back from the editor, the main editor of the journal, that said, I hate to tell you, Janie, but I gave it to the hardest reviewers who I want you to learn from. So I never should have put that note on there. But I did, and I got back one of those letters that said, no, it's not ready for publication, but if you make these changes, then it will be. And sure enough, I am published in that journal now. So the peer review process is terrifying, but it's very important. And your work stays out there forever, forever and ever and ever. Once it's published, you can't ever take it. Well, you can take it back. You can try to take it back, but it is actually still out there. So that's the peer review process. This week, you're going to work on your speaker's notes for your presentation. So your speaker's notes are what go at the bottom of a slide that only you can see when you are doing a PowerPoint presentation in front of a group. The reason for having the speaker's notes is to remind you what it is that you're going to say about whatever the graphics are that you're showing your audience. Because you do not show your audience all the words that you are going to say. Can you imagine how boring that would be? Have I seen people do it? I absolutely have. I have seen people put up slides and then read every single word to me. Like I can't read. I don't get it. So your slide has to have some emotional impact. It has to grab your attention. It has to evoke some kind of response in you when you see the picture on the slide. Now, you can have a few words, but you don't write down everything that you're going to say on a slide. That's your speaker's notes. So that's what you're going to be working on this week. All right, I want to go through the guidelines. Let me move my big old head over here. There you go. I want to move my head because these are the guidelines for this week. Notice it says the speaker's notes are going to accompany 5 to 7 slides. You don't just take the paper that you wrote and chop up that information and make each little section speaker's notes. That's not what we're looking for here with your presentation. You're going to take the information that you gathered in that paper and you're going to make a presentation. So if you look right here on this left side, this pretty much tells you what the slide should say. Scientific background. And first of all, you have to have an introductory slide, right? GMOs. It had pictures of corn and soy and whatever, tomatoes and bananas and whatever you're going to have on there. And maybe it says, you know, what a GMO is, or it could have your name, right? You have to have an introductory slide. That's your first slide. And then you get into the scientific background. Now, you're not making the slides yet, but you're making the information that you would say about the slides this week. So you're going to have a brief overview of your scientific background, the background information. So what is a GMO? What are the genes that are added to organisms? What is your question? What is your overall question? And how does this relate to everything else in the sciences, especially the natural sciences? So that's your first slide, and that's the information that you're going to put in the speaker's notes. You're going to explain all that under proficient 100% scientific background, right? Audience. You're going to explain how your topic impacts your audience and why, ooh, that is a really important word, why they should be interested in this. You have to explain to people why they should care about this topic because maybe they don't know. Maybe they never even thought of this before. So how does this impact them? And what are examples of what other people know about this topic, especially the general public, right? Empirical evidence, this is where you go into your sources and you talk about what you learn from your sources. And you do not have to have only 3 sources. I cannot stress that. You can have as many sources as you want to have, and you have to be able to support the information that you're putting into your presentation. If you are one of the people who keeps saying that GMOs are bad for your health, you've got to have some empirical evidence to back that up. You can't just keep saying that. You can't just keep saying GMOs cause obesity and cancer and heart disease and I don't know, whatever else. You've got to have some empirical evidence. But the same thing is true for any topic. If you're talking about climate change, you have to have empirical evidence that show this. That you have to show that the temperature of the earth is going up incrementally every single year. So you have to provide data no matter what your topic is. Personally, why does this issue impact you? Why do you find it important? Why did you choose this? You cannot say because it was one of the 7 topics that I had to choose from. No, you were supposed to choose something that was interesting to you. So why is it interesting? An investigation. How has this investigation impacted your thinking about the topic because of what you learned, right? How did your learning through this process of research change the way that you thought? And then message, how effectively you communicate your message, but that's the logistics of this. That is not a slide. That's the logistics of this. Are you effective in explaining this to your particular audience? And articulation of response, right? That's your grammar and all that, syntax and all that, spelling. So the last 2 things are more the logistics of the speaker's notes. I want to show you on the slide. Here's an example of an ocean acidification slide and how I would set it up. Boom, I'd have a huge picture of a fish and a coral reef because I want impact. I want to show my audience something about my topic. I even chose the color scheme to make it look like ocean water. And notice that I have some words on here, which is absolutely fine, but they need to be bullet points. What is ocean acidification? All right, then I explain what it is. That's what's down here in the speaker's notes. If you pull up that little line right there that you see at the bottom of a PowerPoint slide, you will see this section down here. Click to add notes, and that is where you will add your notes in the last week, your speaker's notes, to your 5 to 7 slides. Okay? So you can put bullet points, but you don't put all your information on a slide. You put those in your speaker's notes, and that's what you're working on in week 7. All right, one other thing that you need to be aware of is that the end of the term is coming closer, and everything has to be turned in before midnight on Sunday, June the 30th. Make sure you do this. You cannot turn in anything after that. You cannot. If you feel like you would like to ask for an incomplete, then you have to have successfully completed 70% of the work in the course, and that means point-wise, by the time we turn in a request for an incomplete. So you can't do the first week's work and then ask for an incomplete. The college will not let you do that. Just be mindful of that. And if we do ask for an incomplete, that has to come from me. And I have to check off the box that says, yes, you have successfully completed 70% of the work in the course. And if you haven't, I won't check the box and they won't approve the request. So just realize that. All right, if you need anything this week, we're getting down to the wire now. If you need anything this week, be sure and email me, m.sigmon@snhu.edu. I'll be glad to help you. With that being said, I hope that you have a wonderful week number 7.